Okay, thanks, Jeff. We will call the meeting of the General Forum of October 26, 2021 to order. We'll begin with public comment. Do we have raised hands in public comment? Scott?
Mr. Chair, did you want me to go over the couple?
Oh, okay. You want to do the highlight, the red highlights?
Real quick.
Okay, thank you.
Just to remind everybody, as far as muting and unmuting of participants, just to maintain a respectful and orderly process during the meeting. All participants should be muted unless they're recognized to speak. Should an individual desire to speak, they must raise their electronic hand or indicate to a meeting host by way of the chat that they wish to speak. Should audio cause disruption to the meeting, please note that staff will work to mute these participants. The chat feature will be limited to discourage sidebar conversations during the meeting. Participants will only be able to send chat messages to the meeting hosts. Presenters have links or other information that they wish to share with the group. It can be provided to one of the hosts, and I will distribute it after the meeting. And speaker management assigned individuals will work to help manage the time provided for with comment by elected officials and members of the public, just to ensure that we have equal time and participation that's provided for in accordance with the COG meeting guidelines. I've received no written comment in advance of the meeting, Mr. Chair, but I do know that a number of participants are online.
I see Mr. Mullen waving his hand. So, Mr. Mullen, please.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Mullen. I own a house in Ferguson Township and Patton Township. Concerning my house in Patton Township, which I've owned for 22 years, the problem I have, the concern I have is the UAJA wastewater utility. They overbilled me for 5 years by $2,000. I set up a website to describe everything they did to me, statecollegereport.com. Anyone can contact me through that site if they want to discuss this. I want to tell you the same thing I told you last month. There's a conflict between some of your organizations. Your rental inspectors never said I had an apartment in my house, but your township UAJA representatives said I had an apartment in my house for 5 years. So that's a conflict between your organizations, your townships. And so I'd like you to talk to the UAJA, and their billing system is totally messed up. You can see everything I have at my website, statecollegereport.com. I mean, I've been to your COG meeting many times in the past. Do any of you have any questions for me or comments? Or do you think it's normal that UAJA should bill me twice as much as all of you and most other people? I just have a single family home. It's a split level, bi-level, a normal house in Patton Township, but they bill me twice as much as my neighbors, twice as much as hundreds of other split level houses. And the UAJA refused to answer my questions for the last 6 years. I have 15 questions posted at statecollegereport.com. The UAJA representatives, 10 of them, plus the director, have never answered those questions. And I plan to sue the UAJA board around September of this year, about 5 months, if this doesn't get resolved. I'd like any of your townships or your organization to work with me or talk to me or talk with the UAJA to try to resolve this. I've always acted in good faith, but it seems like the UAJA board doesn't. I'm available to answer any questions you have, statecollegereport.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Scott, other yellow hands?
Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no other hands.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Item 3, approval of March 22 minutes. Take a motion to accept those. Somebody?
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. We have a second on that.
Second.
Elliot, okay. Discussion? Questions? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by saying yes. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, aye. So, something positive. Any no votes on that one? Thank you. Item 4, statement of condemning hate crimes in our community. The executive committee discussed this, and Eric has put together the document that's in the packet, and Eric is going to read that statement now. So, Eric?
Thank you very much. As you mentioned, Mr. Chair, the executive committee discussed this last week, and out of frustration and I think a sense of urgency, asked me to prepare this document for consideration by the general forum, intending to both recognize that hate has no place in our community, but also that we wanted to condemn the continuing vandalism of sites in our region by a hate crime group. So the proposed joint statement reads as follows. Whereas the Center Region COG recognizes that hate, discrimination, and bias have no place in our Center Region community, and whereas one of our shared priorities for the Center Region is to be welcoming to everyone, and whereas the Center Region municipalities join together to form the Council of Governments to jointly undertake and formulate solutions to our common needs in a cooperative manner, and whereas the Center Region Council of Governments provides a means for communication, cooperation, and joint action in the interest of the municipalities individually and collectively. And whereas it has been proven that building organizations that are diverse, equitable, and inclusive create more functional and productive organizations. And whereas we believe diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives must go beyond rhetoric. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the leaders of the Center Region Council of Governments join our voices and stand together to denounce hate and bias in our community, particularly the recent vandalism at Martin Luther King Jr. Plaza. And we encourage the municipalities of the Center Region and the leadership of the Center Region COG to collaborate to support diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts to build a stronger Center Region.
Thank you, Eric. On page 3, we have a motion. Would someone care to move that motion in the second?
So moved.
Mr. Myers, have a second?
Second.
Okay, got that? We have discussion on that motion or the document? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by saying yes. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. No? Any no's? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving to number 5. Resolution for 2021-4 designated May Bike Month. Trish Meek, are you on?
I'm here. Thank you.
Hi, Trish.
Thanks for having me tonight. As you're probably aware, May is National Bike Month, and it is a tradition in the region to designate this month as a show of support for bike activities. There is a resolution included in your agenda packet that we took to PSC, TLU, Executive Committee, and now to you, asking you to designate May as Bike Month, Bike to Work Week, and Bike to Work Day, and Spring Bike Anywhere Friday. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
We have a motion in the packet. Would someone move that, please? Mr. Trevino? Dan?
I make the motion.
Okay, you were muted for a minute, though. We have a second on that.
Second.
Mr. Barlow, we have discussion.
I have just one comment that when we approved this resolution for Half Moon Township, one of the comments was to also remember bike safety during Bike Month. So that was just another comment that we wanted to remind everyone.
Good. We should probably put in there, make sure you wear your helmet too, don't we? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying yes. Yes? No? Any opposition? Thank you. Okay, item 6, strategic plan update, review, draft mission and vision statement. Eric and Mr. Danielle Newhart.
Thank you. I'll kick this off real briefly. Over the past few months, we've been engaging both staff and elected officials in developing words, phrases, and other thoughts related to our potential mission, vision, and value statements for the Center Region Council of Governments. And there have been several surveys, and that has led to a refining of mission and vision statements, as well as a list of potential values. And this has been something that I think has been very positive for the engagement with staff, as well as I've been pleased to see how many elected officials have been participating in the feedback process. And tonight is the live interactive portion of the process. So you'll be able to hear from Daniel a little bit more about the process. And then he has some polling and some questions to ask. And so this will be something new. We've done breakout rooms, we've done raise your hand, but we haven't done polling before during one of our meetings. So this is something new for us tonight. And so get your mouses ready so you can give some thoughts and input on some of the questions that Daniel's going to ask. So I'll turn that over to you, Daniel.
Yep. Thanks, Eric, and hi, everybody. So I'm Daniel Newhart. I work at Penn State around strategic planning, and I just want to say before we get started, thanks for all you do. Thanks for your service to our communities and our municipalities, and much appreciated. And like Eric mentioned, thank you as well for taking some of our surveys along the way. It's very important that we get your thoughts as we proceed with this.
We thank our neighbors across the street too, so it goes both ways.
Oh, gotcha. Well, very good, very good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. But like Eric said, we're going to roll through this, hopefully a bit of a technical dance today as I put up polls and we look at slides. But what we're doing is just checking in with you all. You all have given us some good thoughts. In fact, some of you, when we gave you the survey, gave us some possible rewrites, which were very helpful. And so you might see a little something that looks a little familiar, given what you wrote. And yeah, but without further ado, we'll go ahead and proceed here. I'll share my screen in a moment. Okay. Okay, so you should see a slide that says mission statement. Can I get one head nod? Yes, thank you. Okay, very good. So what we're coming up with now, so remember what happened was the very first survey we gave was to COG staff, asking them about why they think the COG exists, what the work is that the COG does. The second survey elected officials got, asking the same questions and of some draft mission and vision statements. What I'm going to share with you today is what we did, or I'm sorry, the revised mission and vision statements that we used your feedback for. So this is where we're sort of landing. So I'll read that real quick. But the Center Region Council of Governments supports the residents who live, work, and play in the diverse communities that make up the Center Region by providing cost-effective, consistent, and high-quality public services. And what we'll do here in a moment is get some feedback around some really specific parts that were people were asking some questions about. But you all also, when you took a survey, we asked you about some values that should drive COG. And so I wanted to share that some of the values that you all seem to resonate with actually resonated with this mission as well. And those values that you all seem to mark pretty importantly were community, efficiency, teamwork, collaboration, dependable, inclusion, open communication, and transparency. So I just wanted to keep that values conversation as we're going here. But what we'll do real quick is we'll get a sense of a couple questions from you all regarding this draft mission statement. So I'm going to put up a poll with 2 questions to start, and you should see it now-ish. And there should be 32 responses I should get in here. So the first question is, given that Zoom poll, and you may have to move some windows around to see the mission as well as the poll. Sorry about that. Eric warned us about mouse clicks, but not mouse movement. My apologies. But that first question is, how well does this mission statement represent who the COG is? And the second question is something where we can really use your insight and expertise on. Do you think, when you're thinking about those who you represent, do you like the word communities, municipalities, or both? Thinking about what might read to the folks that you represent. So let's go ahead and take a couple minutes there to fill in the poll. I've already got 3 responses.
And again, this is for elected officials to respond to, please.
Thanks, Eric.
And I think we have 26 on tonight.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. We're getting there with 18, 19. Whew. Speeding along.
That means you have our attention, Dan, so.
Very good. Glad to hear that. It looks like we're at 25 out of 26.
Do we have 32 elected people on?
We have 26.
So here's 25 votes. They have one more to go. Okay.
So we'll get just
Maybe
another,
we're at 25.
yeah, we'll give it a couple more seconds. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end this real fast. And you all should see now, you should see the results of kind of where we landed. So the revised mission statement, to me, this data tells me that we're getting there. We're a little bit farther away than I'd like to be, but we're getting close. And so just so you all know, we'll have some more ways to interact and retool that mission statement. But this mission statement, again, is a combination of the COG staff as well as that first survey you all took. The second question tells me that people somewhat resonate with that, the word communities over municipality, but some folks like both words. And I don't know if anybody really quickly would just like to share a thought about that, sort of why communities and municipalities with me, so I can understand a little bit more.
I think it's related to my word of we're working both sides of College Avenue, and that makes us both very valuable partners to each other.
Okay.
Neither one can exist in this case without the other.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Great. Okay. All right, very good. Does anyone want to talk about maybe why they were in the middle with that mission statement, the moderately well? Nobody said it didn't represent COG at all, which is great. That's helpful, right? So we're gas in some direction there. But anybody want to share just really quickly some thoughts about what they were thinking when they voted this way with the moderately well?
I'll share real quick. I didn't feel like this mission statement made it clear that we were a bunch of municipalities working together. This could be a mission statement for, say, a single municipality. It didn't seem to make that sort of make that veil of what COG has.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, so we'll see what we can do about that, make it a little stronger. That's helpful.
Thanks, Carla.
Any
Anyone
other
else?
thoughts? Sorry, Chair.
Don't be bashful.
Okay. Now, sometimes this stuff, you might want to marinate on it a little bit, and that's totally fine. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that as we proceed, there'll be chances to give more feedback. But I think what today told me is we're getting close, maybe with some tweaks, additions, some wordsmithing, but kind of the spirit of it is there, which is good. So what I'll share now is a vision statement. So again, when you all gave us some input on vision statement, a vision statement is supposed to be where we're going in the future. Generally, vision statements are meant to be aspirational, kind of charting our course. And ultimately, in a strategic plan, a vision statement helps guide our goals of our strategic plan, right? So I'm going to share where we're landing with that. Again, this includes feedback from the COG staff and you all. So that's where we're sort of landing. And again, I'll read real quick, sorry. By maximizing the benefits of shared services through municipal partnerships, the Center Region Council of Governments will have a positive impact on the quality of life of those living, working, and playing in the Center Region. So maybe that picks up that municipality thing we talked about, that municipal partnerships that you talked about earlier, Carla, right? Does it maybe get at that a little bit? Okay. But we can make that mission statement a little bit stronger given your feedback. But I wanted to share as well the values that corresponded with at least what I saw that you all voted around, the values that you resonated with. Again, we've got efficient, safety, collaboration, dependable, community, teamwork, and equitable access. So we're going to ask you a question about this one real quick. And basically the question here is more or less, are we on the right track? So, before I jump into that, Elliot, it looks like you have your hand up. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
To me, the question made it seem like COG doesn't exist yet and that it's going to be formed and then will exist with it, where it says will have.
Yeah, Yeah, usually vision statements are meant to be future oriented, so maybe it was that, but we could tweak that language. I see what you're saying. That's helpful. Okay. Thanks, Elliot.
Will continue to have.
That would work.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, thank you. Here we go. We're revising right now. That's great. Thanks.
I would say aspires to instead.
Aspires to. So the Center Region of the Center Region Council of Governments aspires to have a positive impact. Is that what you're thinking? Okay. I think you're saying yes. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So the quick question I'll have here is basically the first question we asked last time. Are we on the right track, more or less? So I'm going to put that up. And again, you'll have to do some fancy footwork with your windows. But if you could go ahead and fill out that question real quick.
That's right, that's right.
Okay.
Where do you touch to fill it in? The whole pad or one of the bottom bars? But okay.
Getting close. We're at 24.
You get us going, Dan. It doesn't take us long, so move pretty quick.
Whoop. I gave you all more time for this, but we didn't need it. Yeah, very good. So I'm going to share the results with you all real quick. So this tells me we're on the right track. And again, it could be because of the two gentlemen's excellent additions. And so again, we're happy to integrate those and change some words there. But it looks like we're on the right track here, which is really good. It's important to get a sort of shared understanding, or shared at least sort of this looks okay for the vision statement, because again, that helps drive the goals for COG, which are very important in its doing of the actual strategic plan. So real quick, so want to talk next steps with you all. I know we don't have much time today with you all, but I wanted to encourage you all, if you do have thoughts around that mission or vision statement, we can obviously share out those drafts, and they still are in draft form, and that's an important word to use. Those drafts are continued development. Curious about thoughts, curious about, maybe you give it a couple minutes of thinking and you might have some other comments. Maybe, you know, sometimes stuff like this hits me in about 2 hours, that sort of thing. And so we do have a mechanism by which we want to solicit more feedback. As we proceed with the development of the goals, again, I'm encouraged that it sounds like we're on the right track with the vision statement, which will really help us. As we develop those goals, we'd like your input as well. Goals are really important. That tells us sort of the direction that COG's going for the foreseeable future, and really helps us sort of organize the strategic plan. Obviously, as we develop goals, then we get to the point of developing objectives, and that's where the sort of rubber hits the road as far as the work. And that's where we start having conversations about, you know, how might this look differently across different places and spaces in which COG partners. And again, I just wanted to share a thank you for your involvement. I know that, you know, you all are going above and beyond here, giving us feedback outside of these meetings, and we're so appreciative for that. And so we hope you all will stay engaged and involved. And like Eric said, very encouraged by the amount of people who took the survey, seemed interested in the really good feedback that we got. And yeah, so most appreciative there. And I think we actually successfully completed our mission, Eric.
Good. I'd like to thank you and the university for working with us on putting this together. So we'll see you again, Dan. So
very good. Yeah, we're happy to help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 7 is an update on the solar power purchase agreement with Peter Buck and Gretchen. I saw that Peter was on.
How are you doing, folks? Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Peter.
Hi, yeah. So Gretchen Brandt is not able to join us tonight. There was a meeting on the diversity and inclusive excellence for the school board this evening, and the board thought it would be best for her to be there. So I will be the only person presenting this evening. Thank you. Shall I begin?
You're on.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. It's nice to, sort of see you in this train on the right side of my screen here. I'll be speaking with you about where we are in the process for the solar power purchase agreement. And the first time we gave this presentation last year, we began with this quotation by Henry Ford: coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. And last year we had hoped that we would be succeeding, and I would say that right now we are. So we'll talk a little bit about where we are, and hopefully I'll be able to answer any of your questions. So as you know, there are 15 entities that have come together to explore whether or not regional government can adopt solar power. So beginning a few years ago with Joe Vigilone, we got the finance directors together, then brought a sort of nascent proposal to the executive committee of the COG, and we're able to cobble together these 15 organizations to explore whether or not we could go solar. I don't need to review all of them. You're perfectly capable of reading, but the group has remained together and strong. As you know, recent developments in Pennsylvania have been very exciting regarding the solar industry. So we know that Penn State had entered into a 70 megawatt solar power purchase agreement to account for 25% of its purchased electricity. That was now a couple of years ago. Philadelphia is in a comparable project with Community Energy, which is a Pennsylvania solar company. Right here in our own backyard, the University Area Joint Authority will complete a 5 megawatt installation tied to batteries. That's our local face of a fairly sizable project. SEPTA has a 43 megawatt project. And most recently, in pretty exciting news, Governor Wolf announced that the state would be purchasing 50% of the state government's electricity through solar on a set of Lightsource BP projects, accounting for 191 megawatts. That's 50% of the state government's power, and that's very exciting. The solar industry in Pennsylvania is very strong and very active, so we continue to be very bullish about what is happening. So last year we were able to put together the cost sharing agreement for the energy services consultant and what each of these organizations would contribute. And we will be releasing a request for proposals for the energy services consultant very soon. So this cost sharing agreement was approved and signed last year. CATA needed, under federal rules, to have a lead organization be writing the checks and be financially responsible. So the State College Area School District is the lead organization on that. And the goal was to retain an energy services consultant who could also provide us with legal services to investigate a solar power purchase agreement. We needed that group to come together, or suspect that we need a group of that size to come together so that we can achieve the economy of scale at which we would be able to beat the grid price of electricity. We estimate right now the total cost of the energy services consultant to be about $65,000. That's not a hard and fast number. No one should glom onto that number too hard, but it seemed like a pretty good guess based on conversations that some of us have had with consultants themselves and looking out on the market. So the cost allocation for paying that either that individual or the firm is based on the electricity usage among the groups here. So when you look across the total number of about 32 million kilowatt hours is there, but then you can look across the center county government accounts for about 2 million kilowatt hours. For example, the State College Borough Water Authority about 4.5 million, and the State College Area School District at 13.7. So, and then down to a very small number, say like 68,870 there with Half Moon Township. So we have all sorts of sizes here, but you're paying proportional to the amount of electricity you use. And those are based on December of 2019 numbers for the previous year. Oh, here. Nope, what just happened? All right, so our goals are hopefully we can reduce electricity costs. We have reason to believe that that's possible based on the purchases of these other fairly large groups. We also want to provide price certainty for long-term electricity costs. Of late, there hasn't been a lot of volatility here in this part of the market, but we know that there can be volatility in the electricity market. Obviously, we want to meet climate and sustainability goals given the resolutions that have been passed either by member municipalities or by the COG General Forum or Policy 833 from the school district that was passed last year. We also want to be able to educate regional participating entities, citizens, professionals, and youth. So those things have come up in the conversations of the working group. Also reduce the cost of developing renewable energy projects. So more or less, the more projects there are, at a certain point, you know, we can be in there so that people are really competing for not only for our being the off taker, but also as firms just get better and better at this and are building at scale, their price will come down as well. We want to integrate economic prosperity, health and well-being, and environmental integrity into energy development. Those have been stated very clearly in the working group. To facilitate industries and businesses within the region to increase energy diversity and reduce dependence on fossil fuels. So that's certainly written into some of the resolutions. And also we have a number of firms that are active in central Pennsylvania and in the state more generally, so we can support Pennsylvania jobs. We want to enhance the economic value of our own assets and to provide, I think this is really important based on the amount of attention that I know member municipalities, and when I was on the Ferguson board, that we tried to pay attention to making sure that we have beautiful places to live, that we do our part inevitably through a request for proposals when we get to that point of making sure that whatever facility may be providing us with electricity, that it is a good neighbor. So I'm on I chair a micro working group that will be, or I am part of the micro working group that has drafted the RFP for the energy services consultant. We will respond to any questions from firms regarding that request for proposals. We will put together scores for the consultants and then make a recommendation to our group that will come back to you all and the other members. I want to thank everyone on here, Gretchen Brandt, who is the co-chair, Randy Brown, who is the finance and operations officer for the school district, Jason Grotini, who's from the Borough Water Authority and also works in the renewable energy field, Bruce Donovan, who works at CATA and is a wealth of information on contracts, RFPs, Jesse Barlow, who shows up every time, great attention to detail, and you all know Joe and Pam very, very well, without whom we could not do this work. Their time as staff makes all of this work incredibly well. We like working together. It really is a joy. So the timeline here for the energy services consultant request for proposal is that May 12th, we will, unless something strange happens, the working group will approve the RFP for release. Then we'll go through all of those. And then between April 12th and September 7th, the individual boards and the councils will endorse, we certainly hope, who that consultant or what the firm will be. Then we would make a recommendation to the school district, who would then be the point and hire the consultant. And then October 11th, on our recommendation, award the contract. So one of the really exciting things about where we are now is that because we have worked so well together, we have been recognized through by the World Resources Institute and the Rocky Mountain Institute and the American Cities Climate Challenge as a leading organization for intergovernmental, interorganizational solar work. And I think that speaks really well to the history of the Council of Governments and our tendency for renewable or for intergovernmental cooperation. Now, I just want to point out here that the McDonald's in Michigan procurement group, I believe they are no longer functioning, and some very petty part of me as a central Pennsylvanian and a Penn Stater just wants to kind of celebrate that victory over the Wolverines and the Spartans. This is where we are right now, according to this is a timeline that cohort is using. And so we are still pretty early, simply because we haven't started working with the consultant. The really sort of fun and juicy part, I think, for many of us will be in figuring out what it is will go into the request for proposals for the actual energy contract, not the consultant, but the actual solar farm development and the criteria that will go in there, and then eventually getting to the point where we can see what's in an agreement and what we can all, not only what we can live with, but what we really, really want. So key dates, August 12th, September 7th, you all will be faced with making a decision about who we endorse, what firm we work with, and then October 11th would be the latest date, I believe, that SCASD would award the contract. So without that, are there any questions?
Your opening statement by Henry Ford really is applicable, isn't it? You see 15 of us working together.
Yeah, definitely.
Bruce has hand up. Mr. Lord?
Yes, Peter. Thanks for the great work you're doing. There's a number of entities in the center region that could be part of this and are currently not on board. Mm-hmm. And so what are the stumbling blocks to enlarging the participation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, the stumbling block would be someone saying, hey, we would like to be a part of it. And then the group saying, sure, come and be a part of it. And then recalculating how much they would have to pay as a proportion based on their electricity usage. As of right now, we haven't spent any money except in terms of paying staff at the COG to work on this. So what would happen later is, say, we start paying someone and another entity, say the Bellefonte School District or something like that, wanted to join, then we would have to go back and figure out who gets paid what back, and that would likely fall on Joe.
I mean, at this point, our investment into this process has been pretty minimal. And so it's more like, what's it going to cost going forward?
Yeah, so in dollars, that is certainly true. In time, I would say it's been, it hasn't been an absolutely massive project, but it has certainly been time consuming for us to work out all these kinks, because we're not all used to doing it. And it's been a lot of learning. It's been really good.
In the opening period, when we put the project together, Bruce, based on discussion from the county, we extended the invitation to all 32 municipalities and all 6 school districts. I think it's 6 school districts.
Yes.
And spoke pretty heavily to Bellefonte Borough and the Bellefonte School District. So we did the reach out, and we ended up with the 15 we have. But
yeah, and there's nothing. I would just say there's nothing in the group that feels like no one else could join. It's just a matter of who would show up and how formal we want to make that process. If that's something that members of the COG or individual municipalities would like us to do formally, then you can. I mean, you guys, the group can make the group do whatever you want it to.
One of the logical additions would have been the hospital, and we extended an invitation to them, and they declined the invitation. So we all thought the hospital should be, because they're a very large user of electricity.
So I see that Eric has his hand up too.
Eric?
Am I okay to talk, Denny?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, two quick questions. By the way, great work, Peter. Thanks for getting the ball this far. If another municipality wanted to join before August, we wouldn't rerun the formula that we put together for the small amount of money we paid for that's going to happen no matter. Okay, good. The second question, have you gotten any informal indication from any of the partners as to what degree they're going to commit, what percentage of their use they're thinking about?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and it's a question I'm really glad that you raised it, because it's the next big question for every member to consider. What is the proportion of your electricity purchase that from 0 to 100 percent that you believe your entity should put into the PPA? And so what I can, based on the experience I've had, in Rob Cooper, who works at Penn State's Office of Physical Plant, and I shared this at the Climate Action and Sustainability group a couple of weeks ago, that there is an economy of scale that gets pretty locked in the last time we looked at about 20 megawatts of installed capacity. That is just a little bit less than 100% of everyone right now. If everyone in the group right now went 100%, based on previous experience, we would be right at the sweet spot. If we go, based on previous experience, much smaller than that, the price will start to creep up. So there's, inviting others in might be good, but if, not to pick on Half Moon, if Half Moon, I know Danelle's like, you're going to pick on me again. It's not right. But if Half Moon Township said, we're only going to do 25%, it doesn't do much to that number, right? If Patton says, we're only going to do 25%, it won't do too much to the number. But if CATA or the Borough Water Authority or the school district did that, it shrinks that number big time. And if that ends up with everybody at 25%, it's probably not going to be a very attractive project. So having a range that we can play with, and that the energy services consultant could look out on the market, say with a request for information, we would be able to learn. Did I answer your question, Eric?
Yeah, and my understanding is that each of us is going to take this up at a meeting, and possibly you or someone will be there. So at that meeting, we would have more information on that range and kind of where we are, so we know collectively what targets we'd like to hit.
Sure. So one of the things, so Gretchen Brandt and I have both said in our group that we are happy to come to any member meeting. So we could come to College Township and, give a presentation and answer questions. We'd be happy to do that. I think Joe and Pam are also, good for us to do that, because we all sort of have our own emphases. But one of the reasons that we want to hire the consultant is the consultant can get more detailed information because it's what they do for a living. It won't be based on conjecture and, what Penn State did or what SEPTA did.
Thank you. Mr. Abrams, I saw a hand there.
You're muted.
Elliot. Unmute. Still muted. There you go.
All right. My question on the consultant, will the consultant be required to hold a certification from the relatively last few years formed organization that certifies climate change consultants?
So something like the International Society for Sustainability Professionals or something like that?
This one's called CCAP. It's but there are several of them, but the one that seems most active is this one on climate change. And it's got a big organization that's developed in the last several years, and they had to give an exam, an oral exam, written exam. And so there's a whole process, just like with other professions.
So that is not a requirement in the RFP, but the consultant's RFP does have within it, we want to know who the lead person will be who will work with the group. And so we want as much information about that individual as possible, and then information about their team. Presumably, if they have a CCAP or ISSP or lead or, et cetera, if they are accredited, they would include that. I would imagine, though I can't promise because I can't speak for the other 7 people on the group, that would count positively toward their scoring and our eventual recommendation.
Okay.
I think there's also a question raised about projects of equal size to what we're doing, to make sure they are comfortable dealing with a group of 15 people. That was one of the early questions.
Yeah, we have in the front matter of that RFP about who we all are, and I would imagine that any consultant that wants to work with us is going to, they're going to have to walk in knowing that it's 15 governmental entities, and that's either your idea of a solid, steady paycheck or living hell, and it could be both. So,
yeah, right. Are there other yellow hands? Any other questions? Amy, do you see no other hands? Okay, this is not a motion item, it's a discussion only. So we expect to hear from you again, Peter, soon. And
all right.
Sitting with the group, I say it's a real pleasure to be working with a group of people that are so devoted to this. And as a sidebar, Millheim, the little borough of Millheim,
yep,
has its own solar power purchasing agreement group.
Yep, they did that for their I believe their wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So, well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and you all have a good night. Thanks for having me.
Hey, bye-bye. Okay, item 8 is a budget amendment by Eric and Joe. Which one of you would lead?
Sure, I'll kick this off, and then we have several people with us tonight that can help explain any details for the general forum. But if you'll recall back to approximately a year ago, the general forum and the COG did not have any procedures and any authority really to hold meetings like we're doing right now. No legislation was in place. It was just right about this time last year that emergency legislation was passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor, authorizing local governments and organizations such as the COG to meet virtually and conduct business. And that legislation is tied to the continuation of the disaster emergency declaration by the state. Once the emergency ceases, that authorization goes away. And so we did some preparation and research during the summer, and the general forum approved a resolution last July or August that includes the authority for meeting virtually like we are during a future emergency, which could be weather or some other emergency, but also the authority for the general forum and COG committees to meet in a hybrid mode, which would mean that a minimum of a quorum would need to meet in the room, but other members above the quorum and staff, consultants, presenters like we had this evening tonight, Peter and Daniel, could come in participating remotely. It could save money. It could mean that those who are traveling or not able to leave their home for some reason could be participating virtually like we are now, as long as we have a quorum in the room when there's no emergency situation. So since that emergency, since that resolution was passed last summer, Scott Binkley and others have been working on putting together a plan and equipment needs so that we can convert the general forum room to be able to host hybrid meetings. We have received proposals from a couple of different AV vendors. We've worked with CNET, and we have a proposal in hand that has been vetted through the facility coordinator. Lou Brungard has been helping us with this since he started in the first of the new year. And we have run this through the facilities committee and the finance committee, and there's a recommendation to acquire the base system that is presented to you in your packet with one alternate. And I will in a moment let Lou handle the explanation. Accompanying that was also a recommendation from the finance committee and executive committee for how to approve the funding for this system. And again, it is a base proposal with one alternate, and it is not necessarily the deluxe fancy system. It's what we think will get us going, and we'll be able to start hybrid meetings later this spring or summer when we think it is safe enough to begin gathering. And we will continue to, as we'll talk later in the meeting, to abide by state guidance, CDC guidance, as well as local ordinances regarding gathering. But when the time comes, we want to be ready from a technology standpoint to be able to conduct hybrid meetings so that those who can meet in person are able to do so, and those who are unable to join us can do so virtually. So with that, maybe Lou and Scott, you could give a brief explanation of the system, and then we could take some questions, and then we can ask Joe to explain the financing and amendment that would be necessary.
Lou? Hello, Lou.
Good evening.
Hey, hi, Lou.
So does anybody have any specific questions?
Well, Lou, why don't you talk about the both the audio and video components that are part of the system that's recommended, please?
Okay, so we have two microphone arrays. Everybody recognizes the audio challenges that room has historically presented. So this first step, and we'll call it the first step because the system is expandable. So as we learn more about the hybrid meeting environment, we identify or continue to identify unique needs of the space and the requirements to sponsor these meetings moving forward. The system can be expanded and adapted. There's a video camera and a control that will make Scott's life much easier. He can help manage the meeting and not worry about a camera. So that camera will focus to zones within the room. And again, this has been worked out with our vendors and CNET just to make sure that we're not installing equipment that can't be shared during those kinds of broadcasts and meetings as well.
Thank you. Joe, you have something you want to share?
I wanted to see, did you have anything to add before I jump into the financial side?
Just real quick. I mean, we are a large group, obviously. We have challenges that, individual municipalities don't have. So we're trying to be seen and heard in a hybrid environment. we have Mr. Hartsock from, the vendor online that can speak to any technical questions or provide more detail. He's a vendor that was recommended to us from CNET. But there's challenges. We know that the system can grow or move with us if that's the case. But like Eric and Lou said, it's the first step. So if there's any questions, we can answer them.
Questions of Scott or Lou or Mr. Hartswick? Okay, now hearing questions, I would turn to page 6. On the bottom of that page is a motion. Would someone care to make that motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Frank. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Somebody from Patton Township, you can.
Dan.
Dan? Okay. Mr. Farina. Okay. Is there discussion now? We have a motion and a second. Going once? Going twice? Is that a raised hand, Dan, or is that just part of your hand? I see something in the. Okay. All in favor of that motion, signify by saying yes. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? No?
Yes.
Sounded unanimous. Good, thank you. Okay, let's move on to university report. Is Sharima on?
I am. Thank you so much, Denny. I'm doing well. I just have a brief report. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, I'm sorry, my computer just went blank for a second there. The first thing is commencement. So we are preparing for commencement and we have things underway. We'll have 7 ceremonies, consecutive ceremonies, and they will be, of course, socially distanced. We estimate that we'll have about 21,000 people at the ceremonies altogether. So we're just preparing for that, as well as working with College Township on informing them about any type of traffic flows and mitigations for that, but we don't anticipate a whole lot around that. The other thing is just our COVID numbers are pretty steady, still hovering around 3% range in terms of our testing, and that's total for faculty, staff, and students. And we are encouraging students to get tested before they leave. So before departure, 3 days before time that they leave, they can get tested at Hints or Corona. So we're just preparing to close out the semester and get ready for summer and fall. So that's all I have for this evening.
Season moves quickly, doesn't it? So.
Yes, it does. It's a COVID time warp we're in. But hopefully things will be different in the fall.
Evan Myers, Evan, you have a hand up?
Yeah, Denny, thanks. I just wanted to ask a question about what Penn State plans to do in the fall from a COVID standpoint. When we track the cases in the center region, we can see that when there's students here, there's a spike. Obviously, we want the students to be here. They contribute mightily to our community. But many other universities, Rutgers, for example, but a number of them have announced they're going to require that their students be vaccinated for the fall. What's Penn State's plans in that regard? I know I've been asked by a lot of my neighbors, community members, if that's going to be the case, because they would like to see that be the case. So that's my question. Thanks.
Thank you, Evan, and you're not the first to ask. So totally understand, and we are having those internal conversations. We don't plan to make that decision until closer to fall, but they are discussing that. So we don't know right now, but of course, we will let folks know by the time we get ready for fall semester.
Thank you.
Other questions of Shema? No other hands raised? Thank you. Okay, I think Peter mentioned that Gretchen was not with us, so I suspect we do not have a school district report then. So. Okay, Executive Director report. Eric, what do you wish to share?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just have a couple of remarks tonight, and then we'd be happy to take any questions regarding facility reopening or the activity report, which was distributed previously. But I did want to let you know that as we've worked throughout the pandemic, our top priorities have been to ensure that our staff have been safe. We are also striving to ensure the safety of our public, our customers, our patrons, and we have been slowly planning to reopen our facilities gradually, not rushing anything, and being ready to have all of the staff who've been working remotely and in a different circumstance for the past 8, 9, 10 months. We're trying to ease back into things. So we have been working on reopening plans for the past 4 to 6 weeks. And a little bit later, when we get to the agency director report, Lisa Collins will report in a little bit more detail on what's happening with the library. But I did want you to know we've been working very closely with Lou Brengard and all of the agency directors to develop plans for reopening. And we will continue to focus on safety. As I mentioned, we'll continue to require masking, physical distancing, abiding by any of the gathering restrictions that are in place based on the Department of Health, CDC, or local regulations. Since mid-April, we have been phasing in some of the staff into some of our facilities that have been very sparsely occupied over the past few months. And as we're easing in, people are really glad to be back in the workplace, feeling comfortable with that as we have been phasing things. So that has been a positive. We are preparing for the 1st of June to be the point in time which the agencies that are in the COG building, along with administration, will begin to have public visitors. Will begin initially with limited hours, 9 to noon and 1 to 4, so that we can sanitize and make sure that any cleaning that needs to be done or misting or UV treatment can be done to make sure that we're killing off anything that may be coming in during those visitations. But we are trying to, as I said, keep everybody safe. So just to run through a few other details, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. We have been focusing, as I said, on bringing folks back including in the code area. Earlier this spring, the code agency finished the occupation and remodeling in suite number 1. So those staff have been back in that area with the exception of 1 or 2. And by the 1st of June, that area will be fully staffed. So suite 1 will be the main point of contact for anybody coming in to transact business or ask for questions or drop off plans, that sort of thing. For other agencies in the building, we'll try and schedule appointments preferably, but we will be able to take visitors elsewhere. And then Center Region Parks and Recreation will begin as well on June 1st, having visitors be able to come in and transact business. They have safety measures in place, and we'll be ready for those visitors at that building as well. Finally, the Active Adult Center is currently at a 2-day-a-week schedule, with the 3rd day that is a in-person fitness class only, and that we are working with the County Office on Aging, and will continue to work with the county and the state as that facility is able to open up a little bit more as time goes by. So we're really continuing to focus on the safety, but also trying to reopen a little bit more over time. And so we expect, as I said, by June 1st to begin reopening and continuing to move along the way for more in-person capacity, as well as then once we get the AV systems in place that you approved a few minutes ago, then we can begin moving forward with starting to test hybrid meetings, starting with committees, and we'll keep you posted as that moves along. You'll probably be holding a few hybrid meetings first in committees before we test it with the full general forum. But we're looking forward to seeing more of you face to face in the regular meetings again. So again, Lisa will give you a little bit longer explanation about the library in a moment, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or ask specific agency directors to help out if need be.
Any questions of others? Otherwise, I see that Lisa is going to give us a update. Welcome to your first general forum, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. So tonight, what I'm going to do is follow up behind Eric a little bit with sort of just talking a little bit about sort of how we've made our decisions so far. We have absolutely prioritized the safety of our community, our volunteers, and also of the staff. We've also, as Eric said, we've always worked closely with public health and government officials to monitor the COVID-19 community indicators. And I think throughout the pandemic, one of the things I'm most proud of that we've done is we've listened very closely to our community regarding what their safety expectations are and also what their service needs are throughout this entire pandemic. And we recently completed a patron survey to assess the community's comfort to sample returning in-person building services or in-building services. And with this information, we feel that we are ready to safely reopen the SCLO Center Region Library building to our community. I will say, reopening the building because we've never stopped serving in a multitude of ways, but to bring people back into the building. And on May 4th, and I wanted to let everyone here know first, May 4th, SCLO is going to begin our next phase of our COVID-19 service plan. And that includes a step-by-step reopening of the building, and that it keeps safety as our top priority, because we heard very clearly in the community survey that people felt comfortable taking that next step with us. Our patrons feel good about that choice and want that to happen, but only if we can ensure that we are putting safety first and that we're going to be enforcing masking, social distancing, and other COVID-19 protocols. So given that priority, that's where we've started doing all of our planning. Our first phase, as I said, is opening the building lobby for material pickups. And I want to give you an idea sort of what to expect with that phase 1 lobby pickup. Again, safety first, following all the masking, social distancing, COVID-19 protocols. It also means expanded hours, more time for our community members to come in, pick up their items. Capacity limited a little bit, but only for the safety of patrons and staff. Our popular self-checks will be available once again, so people will be able to come into our lobby, pick up the items that they've placed on reserved, use the self-checks safely, wiping them down in between if they choose to do so. And then we also, for members of our community, and I think this is really important, for members of our community that are uncomfortable with entering the building, our scheduled pickup services will continue. Those will remain the same. And I know that that's a lot of little details, but I want to let you know that all this information and more, the notes that I'm talking from tonight, those can be found at sclolibrary.org/lobby, LOBBY, with some information that's going to be continually updated as we kind of present this to the community. We intend to, and this is also really exciting, we intend to follow what we believe will be a very successful phase 1 throughout May with a successful start of phase 2 in early June. And that would include material browsing throughout the library, including our very, very popular children's department. And our goal is to do all of that in time for summer reading, so we can make sure that we are meeting the needs of our community in the summer and getting kids books during the summer as well. So we're going to continue moving on with this. I'll continue to update everyone, and I'm certainly open if anyone has any questions, something that they would like to know in a little bit more detail. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome. Kathy normally told a little joke at the end of her comments, but yeah, we'll get you used to that one.
Well, you know what? I can tell you, and I don't know if it's a joke, but I thought it was absolutely amazing that this isn't our sort of turn the page information. Did you know that between March and December of 2020, we actually purchased 6,600 disinfectant wipes, 2,592 ounces of disinfectant spray, and 2,268 ounces of hand sanitizer. So thank you for helping us be very clean as we've navigated all this. So
That's more than I wanted to know. So it's okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee reports. Do any of the chairs of the 8 committees want to add to what's in the agenda? Otherwise, a fairly good discussion by the committee chairs. Anyone like to add something? Paul?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was going to share a couple of things, but one in particular I just think is definitely worth noting. At the end of our meeting on the 13th, the committee really expressed our deep admiration and appreciation on behalf of everyone in the Center region for really the outstanding performance of the public safety teams, fire, police, emergency management, hazmat, and others, including Penn State, in 3 recent major incidents. The first was the serious structure fire and rescue on Crabapple Court. The other was the late night fire and potential bomb threat in a student housing building downtown. And then finally, the major accident on Route 322 that involved a tanker truck carrying extremely flammable fuel that went off the road and ended up on its side just off and immediately adjacent to a small stream. In all cases, the skill, the training, dedication, professionalism of the various teams really led to some successful outcomes that saved lives and really minimized damage to both property and the environment. So I think we're really extremely fortunate to have such high quality people and organizations serving our families and our communities. And I just wanted to note that. So thank you.
We're like the Allstate insurance people. We're in good hands, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Okay, any other chairs wish to share something? That's okay. Rich, Frank, and then Betsy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the executive committee, just wanted to expand on the 2 items written in the agenda that were not part of the full agenda. One, though, being that there was strong support from the executive committee to develop a procedure to appoint the COG solicitor. We've set a goal hopefully for our reorganization meeting in January of 2022. And then the second item was regard to communications outside of the COG. That is going to probably become part of a larger project of a procedure manual of sorts for the COG and a good repository area for these various items. And then finally, one item that isn't listed in there that the executive committee did discuss, we had a brief discussion on what has been coined as phased financing, in that we'll be getting our results from Whitehall Road Park here in this week, and then they'll be taken up at the finance committee for discussion, and then exec, and then the general forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Betsy?
Yes, I would like to welcome Gretchen Brandt to the Committee of the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee. She was not a member as of the last General Forum meeting. I also want to announce that there were about 160 people at the Climate Forum on April 13th. And finally, to invite everyone, listening tonight to go to the website centersustains.com and take the survey. This is the climate survey that we have available to citizens at large, and that we also did a random sample of citizens to get statistically valid information. So we are at about 966 citizens have taken the non-random sample survey. I'd like to see that number get up to 1,000. So again, centersustains.com and take our climate survey. Thanks a bunch.
And for those that missed the climate forum, I believe Sheena did a recording of that, and it is available. Correct, Betsy?
Correct. Yes.
I ended up watching it on CNF, so good. Thank you. Other comments by any committee chairs? We have a number of other business matter of record items. If any questions of those? Flipping back to the last page here, and number 16 is a very important one if anyone wants to move to that point.
Move we adjourn.
You got it. Have a second.
Second.
Mr. Meyer?
Second.
I think we got Evan on that one. Okay. Thank you, folks. See you next month.
Thank you all. Good night.
Bye-bye.